everyone, and welcome to That Pedal Show. Sans Pedals, Dan here.
Mick here. Won't be Sans Pedals for the whole show, but so as you can know from the title, this video is SG or Les Paul. We've done videos like this in the past. We've done Strat and Telly, we've done 335 and Les Paul. The Gibson SG is a guitar that has eluded us.
Indeed.
Dan has a Junior, which will come out a bit later. Lovely 61 Junior. But kind of a normal, not that this is particularly normal, but a two-humbucker SG is a guitar that we haven't really had on the show. So we thought, I'm very excited because we're loving the tones today. We're going to tiptoe through the decades. Loosely, we're going to start with
the 50s. See, I don't believe that sound was available in the 50s and no one went, this is it, this is the future. So this is a 1953 Fender Pro, lent to us by our friend Dan Thomas, who was here on an experience day.
Thank you, Dan.
And he just happened to bring this in and he goes, have you guys tried this before? And we went, no.
It has a 15-inch Jensen P15N Alnico speaker. It's been very well maintained over the years, but it's stock, it's pretty much original. It is 70 years old. How does that even happen? Anyway, so we're going to start with that, and then we'll move on to a nice, also vintage 1964 Vox AC30, 1961 Vox AC30.
Thank you very much.
We'll then move into the 70s with a 50-watt Marshall, which is a reissue, and then we'll end up somewhere in the 80s with a rack power amp and two EVs. And we'll just talk about what happens with Les Pauls and SGs.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that while both of us have played SGs in the past, none of us have owned one. Neither of us has owned one for any significant length of time. This is, yes, it is. It's a Gibson Custom Murphy Lab 64 light-aged SG standard in Pelham Blue. Very kindly loaned to us by Gibson. It's a bit of a personal story here. I've been slowly attracting the guitars that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and this guitar in this colour is the sort of last piece of the jigsaw. So Gibson very kindly loaned it to us for the show.
Just to tease you and go, well, we got this.
Well, it's like I say, if you've never spent a great deal of time with a guitar, what a privilege to be able to spend a bit of time with before you splash some cash on it. Dan's guitar is?
So this is an R8 from 2002, so it's a copy of a 1958 Les Paul.
Yep, Les Paul standard. We also have a Murphy aged 57 gold top for a bit of contrast with that one, and finally an actual, real, genuine 61 Les Paul SG Junior, and this employs a very important historical story.
Indeed it does, yeah.
Obviously single P90, the rest are humbuckers. After which lengthy introduction, Daniel, let's get into it.
Indeed.
Right, let's begin. Very quickly, let's see how different these two Les Pauls sound.
Okay.
We are going to have to swap guitars as well, because me and Dan both sound very different.
Yeah.
When we play.
Indeed. So there'll be a lot of editing. Wait there, Hades.
Give us a couple chords then, Dan.
Okay. It's very interesting.
A bit more vocally honky.
Yeah, it's a sharper attack on the top. This one's a little bit softer. It's got a little bit more extended bottom end. This one, it's like the frequency range has moved down a little bit on this one.
Okay, so now we know what we're dealing with. We'll actually get into what it says on the tin. Sort of what you'd expect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinner.
Yeah.
A bit more wiry, a bit more extended treble that I'm hearing, but that might just be an absence of mids and bottom end.
Well, yeah, I think for me that because it's less bottom end, but that energy sort of moved up, and I'm getting more of that, the mids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a quick test then. I want to see how much clarity. So bearing in mind this 1953 Fender Pro-Amp is 12 watts, I think, and it is.
Is it only 12 watts?
It's dimed. Something like that. It's dimed.
Right.
It's on.
Everything's on.
Yeah, it's in the instrument channel and it's on full.
It's on 10, 10, 10.
10.
Where do you go?
Where do you go? So we'll go on to the neck pickup, and let's see. I'm just going to bring the volume up and ask Dan to do the same, and just see A, how much clarity we've got, and B, where it starts to overdrive.
Okay.
So if you, I don't know, you might be playing a bit of rhythm or something. Here it is on 3. So quite muffly.
Yep.
What you got on 3 on the neck pickup? Kind of muffly and indistinct. You can see why they moved on very quickly from these little Tweed amps, because if they needed some clean there,
yeah, right,
not really happening. I'm going to come up to let's see, 6. Going to come up to 6 on the volume control, tones on 10, and just play some single note stuff.
So a lot more bottom end.
Loads more bottom end.
But gee, it's a great sound.
It
I mean,
really
they're so distinct, but they're both like, oh, come on. They're really, really cool.
Play me, go on to the bridge. Actually, let's do the, no, we'll save this. We'll save this. Bridge pickup down.
Right.
Play some chords, and let's see what sort of chord niceness we can get. Bridge pickup, I don't know, 7 or something.
Chimey, that sort of skinny thing. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, 7.
7.
So that's much closer.
Lighter.
Yeah, much closer.
Fascinating.
Because the output of this thing is...
We've often said it's the loudest guitar, both acoustically and electronically, that lives here.
Yeah. And it's weird, right? Because it's not a high output pickup by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But I've got to turn that down to 5 to get in the same ballpark. And when you do that, you get this beautiful acoustic quality to it. It is, yeah, it's quite extraordinary.
Okay, before we move on to the 60s then, roughly speaking, clearly a lot more happened in the 50s, but before we move on to the AC30, I'll just do a bit of bridge pickup, rocking out for a sec, and on each of the 4 guitars to hear this thing in its full glory.
Come on. The Pelham Blue sits somewhere between the P90 and the Les Pauls.
It really does.
It's incredible because it still has all the snap and the edge of the P90.
And the vocal mid-range,
Yeah.
which I'm going to make a prediction is going to become really interesting when the amps get bigger, the bass goes up, and we need a bit more control over everything.
Right.
Shall we jump forward a few years?
Into the 70s.
60s.
Oh, far, I'm not even there yet. Okay. And we're back in the room.
Dad's laughing because we've just checked the levels. And you can just imagine that you're down the beat club playing in your 60s jangle pop band. Dan turns up and does this. So clearly in 1961,
people were rocking out.
this guitar wouldn't have existed. That one would have done, and that amp certainly did. But let's talk about what the expectation was at that time. It would have been clean, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have been heavy overdrive in that way until we get later in the decade. You can hear it humming as well.
Yeah, and so the more watts, because 30 watts in an amplifier, and there was like, that's you know.
Well, I can tell you from the dB, from the level meters, it's not peaking much more than the Pro.
Well, it's only 3 dB more. I mean, around, you know. But like when the Beatles were using the AC15s and they said we need it louder, so they made AC30s.
Yeah.
And it's like,
so we've got the brilliant channel at 2 o'clock, exactly where it should be, and these are Celestion Alnico Blue speakers. So you've heard the throaty rock sound what we would want in that decade, probably, certainly earlier in the decade, is a bit more jangly clean.
Yeah.
So when you roll the volume down, then what are you getting out of that guitar?
So if I go middle position,
Yeah.
right, I'll put the bridge pickup on 9 and the neck pickup on, say, 7.5.
I've set the guitar. You started off in D somewhere.
Yep. So where this sits, frequency-wise, the cleans are just to die for.
So obviously we don't have a middle position here, and it's completely different in many respects, but just for context. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. We'll just cap off this section. We'll hear these two. We'll hear the two SGs. Hammering the AC30. Obviously, SG standard humbuckers. Les Paul SG Junior single P90. We've only got a bridge pickup on that, so a bridge pickup on this.
It just sounds so. There's the P90 difference, obviously. I'm stunned at how articulate this thing sounds. I was expecting it to be a lot more compressed in comparison.
No.
But all that top end and attack is here with this.
This pickup is about 4 millimeters from the underneath of the strings.
Right.
It's right up there, isn't it?
Right.
How much you got there? Actually, it's not far
It's
off.
not far off.
Not far off. Yeah, maybe a millimetre or two more. Anyway, let us jump forward a decade.
70s. And back in the room for more silliness.
Yeah, loosely come forward into the 70s. 50-watt Plexi, tape echo, and a fuzz pedal. We're probably not going to stay too long here because it is ridiculously loud. We've got the Marshall at 2 o'clock, exactly where it should be.
Yeah.
Well, it should be on 10 really, but we want to maintain some dynamic in the sound.
Yeah. Especially with the Les Pauls and these humbuckers. We obviously play lots of tellies and strats on the show, and they've got more dynamic range. And with the humbuckers, by dialing the gain back a little bit on the amplifier, we get a bit more of that dynamic range back.
Ready?
Ready. That's a whole other level.
Oh my
That is a whole other level.
goodness me.
Wow. Okay, so
We didn't hear the other two guitars in that cacophonous mess.
what was really interesting is that the extended bottom end in that would sometimes sound like a synth.
Yeah.
It was completely square wave. This never didn't sound like an epic tone monster machine.
Yeah, I mean, insane volume, utterly insane volume. There's very, very few places you get away with that these days, if any.
Yeah, but how glorious. Absolutely glorious.
Totally, totally glorious. Will the people feel bereft if they don't hear the other two guitars?
Let's do a quick change.
You play.
I'll play the other two then.
Yeah, that's right. I'll do it. I'll hand you the Axis, Daniel. Axis,
Okay.
Axis Boulders Fuzz. Mental. Could you discern any differences?
No. So the top end in this is a bit fizzier.
Yeah. Hum.
Yeah, a bit more hum. The gold top, it's extraordinary in its the top end. It's unlike any other Les Paul I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is.
It's got so much clarity. It is a lot closer to the Pelham Blue SG.
To the SG, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, in that environment, obviously the full-out throaty rock thing of your Les Paul in particular, if you were to stick Jimmy Page on the end of that, I think you'd be hearing Zepp all day long,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
yeah. That's that sound.
Yeah. Whereas my Les Paul, the gold top, little lighter, bit more articulate, not quite the full throaty rock thing, but lovely. The SG for me, I think, is probably the guitar I would choose.
In that scenario.
Yeah, because it's got the articulation and it's got a bit more that vocally mids. All right, let's talk about anticlimax. Let's go to the 80s.
Back in the room.
Okay.
Welcome to the 80s.
Clearly, this isn't like, an encyclopedic historical account of each decade. It's just a flavour.
Yeah.
And for some reason, at the end of the 70s, everyone lost their minds and decided that like rack gear and really processed digital effects was the way to go. Certainly towards the mid 80s and into the 90s anyway.
But there are some people that did it, and there are others that did it very well.
Yeah. And
I was one of those that did it.
I've been running a rig, in 2022 anyway. One of the iterations of a rig that I ran personally was this, which is a Mesa 5050 stereo power amp, and it's going into a Mesa 212 EV loaded cab, but the left-right bit is done up and down.
Yeah.
So when you hear it, they'll be panned a bit left-right because Some of the stuff is stereo and some of the stuff is wet dry. In fact, the only thing that's stereo is the reverb today.
Okay.
The delay is wet dry.
Right.
And the chorus is wet dry.
Okay.
So it's sort of a mix of wet dry and stereo. So it's kinda 80s.
Right.
But what we should hear is this clean presentation of things. Dan, give us some chords and I'll turn some stuff on.
Okay. So neck pickup
Whatever you like.
on
mate.
10.
Before we switch guitars, what's really interesting about that is the amount of dynamic range here. This may not come across on YouTube, but I can tell by the waveforms, if you play softer and then play louder, the difference we're going to have in volume will be staggering compared to the old amps where that just wasn't available.
Right. Okay, first thing, straight off the bat. After all of the epicness that we had this morning, I thought, oh boy, we're going to the 80s. What's this going to be like? It was extraordinary. It's just, that is not typical of a lot of 80s tones that I know. You know, we got proper valve preamps and stuff and valve power amp, and it really did sound remarkable. That SG is voiced so perfectly. So one of the things that we've talked about in the whole tone wars discussion is there are certain things in the wood that nothing can actually add frequencies, right? It can only take things away.
So we think, yeah.
But there's something in that SG that it's like there's certain notches at certain frequencies that almost give it an acoustic quality. Like the Leicesters are so full frequencied that when it gets heavy, they go square wave and can sound almost synthy.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just the most perfect sounding instrument that I think we need to go back and redo all of our videos, every single one of them we've ever done with that guitar.
I agree. I love its lightness. I love the way it's got more articulation across the board. Let it be said, the Leicester into some of the cranked amps earlier is just a thing of, I mean, you've heard it on so many records. Yeah. It is rock history right there.
Yeah.
Done to whatever degree by me and Dan, but anyway. And there are many of you who will just, you might have stopped at the Pro, the 53 Pro, and gone,
yeah,
that'll do. When we were warming up, Dan said, I'm not sure we needed to go beyond this.
Yeah. This video won't go out until we've got our own. All right, because as soon as this video goes up, you're not going to get one of those anywhere. So
probably hard to find one in that condition, but with thanks again to Dan for that. So Les Paul or SG then, Dan?
Oh, mate, I have to go SG.
I'm going to say for the all-rounder SG, for the Les Pauly moments, obviously the Les Paul.
Yeah.
But I think I could get to love an SG.
You know why?
Struggling with all this.
Yeah, of course.
And that needs to get used to.
Sure.
I will just say one thing. Unless you saw me or Dan do it on camera, this guitar has not been tuned the whole video.
Yeah.
We haven't stopped to retune.
No.
And sometimes that is a criticism of SGs. We didn't use the wang bar.
It's very good. But you know why I'm leaning towards the SG?
It's not bad.
You know why I'm leaning towards the SG? Well, what does it sound like?
It sounds like a Telly Paul.
It does sound like a Telly Paul. It's like a cross between a Telecaster and a Les Paul. It's like, oh man.
Dear Gibson.
Wow.
Remember that guitar you sent us?
We're really sorry.
Well, I mean, clearly we've got to have one. I've got to have one. Whether it's this one or not, I don't know. But
wow, that was
yeah,
extraordinary.
we'll expect to see an SG a lot more on That Pedal Show for its unique tonal voice. Owners, lovers of SGs, you'll be screaming at the screen. I flipping told you so a million times. But, you know, we can't do everything all the time.
Indeed.
That was fun.
Oh, mate, that was so much fun.
More crank damps, Dan.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. A massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch. It is the main way that we fund the show. So
Actual valves.
Actual
valves.
a massive thank you to our preferred retailers, details of which you can see in the descriptions below. And also all of our American friends, anyone that's gone to thatpedalshop.com.
Go to thatpedalshop.com. Buy stuff. It helps.
Yeah. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
We genuinely appreciate it.
Monthly giveaways, podcasts on Mondays.
Brilliant. Well, we will see you soon for VCQs, viewers' comments and questions on Monday evening. So join us there. Till then, have a great day and we'll see you soon. Bye.